ultimately, I think choosing somebody who you want to go through the hard with, know your own origin wounds, know your partner's origin wounds, know each other's stories, know what it was like to grow up in their family. The it's fine little girl turned into the I'm totally fine and unaffected and the cool girl persona and I have no boundaries woman.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Real the Expert series. You guys are in for a treat today. My mind was actually just blown. If you have been struggling with love, relationships, attachment, this is the episode for you. Even if you haven't, it is going to help you discover so many things about yourself and why you are the way you are, why your friends are the way they are, your family members. I am having on Vienna Pharaon. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has her own practice here in New York City. She has practiced therapy for nearly 20 years and is the founder and owner of her group practice, Mindful Marriage and Family Therapy. She told me she has seen over 25,000 clients. So she is a true pro at this. She's been featured in the New York Times, The Economist, and has led workshops for Peloton and Netflix, among others. And she also has a book, which I highly, highly recommend you guys pick up and read after this, called The Origins of You. And it's a national bestseller, so you know it's good. Before we get into it, please, please, please make sure you give this a 5-star rating and review so we can continue doing amazing things like this. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I love you guys, and let's get into it. Vienna, I am so excited to have you here today. I've been watching videos of you all over the internet. I feel like you're everywhere and you're so brilliant. I wanted to get into how you got started with this. I think it's really unique. I mean, I know it's like a trope in like therapy that like we always get started in something because we have our own kind of wounds and we're trying to discover something about ourselves. Can you share how you got into this and why it kind of applied to your life? Because I know you have a unique story.
Well, I had no clue that I had anything to deal with, which is actually kind of a funny part of the story.
That's amazing.
Which I agree. I think I think people in the mental health field and therapists, maybe more specifically, get into this line of work because they're, trying to resolve that which is unresolved in their life, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know it. Yeah. I went into grad school to become a marriage and family therapist. And, day one of class, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm
like,
great.
Not me.
My parents' divorce definitely did not affect me. And I really clung to that story for a long time. And, soon enough, I think I came to realize that obviously it did.
Yeah.
But I really held on to that story, that narrative for a long time. And why that's probably important is because I think having to believe that, because I was quite convincing of myself, was a really strong protective mechanism, which was that if I actually acknowledged that their divorce did impact me, I would need to feel. And that might sound super simple, but for somebody who had not felt their entire lives, that was really significant for me. It was like, I don't know how to feel. There had never been space for me to feel because their divorce was really significant. They went through a 9-year divorce process, which at the time was the record in the state of New Jersey. And my New Jersey girl,
That's crazy.
so you understand that. But it has now been broken. Bless that family. But, it was a really kind of like drawn out process that was high conflict, high tension. Gaslighting and manipulation and psychological abuse and paranoia. I mean, it was a lot. And so you could hear that story now and be like, how could she ever imagine that did not affect her? But you start to understand the ways that we become adaptive through our lives. And I did not know how to touch my pain. Like I didn't know how to make contact with what my experience was. And that is because their experience was all consuming. Yeah. And I was it's fine girl. I pretended like I was unaffected by everything. My belief as a little girl was that there wasn't room for me to not be okay because they were crashing and burning around me. And, if we asked them, they might have a different story. Like they might sit here and say, no chance. Like we could have definitely heard what you were going through. But my perception of it was that.
Yeah.
And that's the part that matters.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it was true or not really is not relevant. My story, and I was a little girl, so I wasn't like,
Yeah. How old were you?
I was in first grade when it started.
Wow.
So there, I didn't have the skill set to be like, is there any room for
right.
me here? Like,
do you mind if I intervene?
Yes. Could you guys pause for a second?
Yeah.
And so, you look at how, like, the ruptures that happen in your childhood and the ways that you adapt as a kid and the ways that you survive through those things. And then who do you become, right? And so the it's fine little girl turned into the I'm totally fine and unaffected and the cool girl persona and I have no boundaries woman. And then she was moving through life in such a way where, is sort of the same storyline. Like, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm unaffected, nothing bothers me, I'm so cool, aren't I amazing to be around? And yet, as you can imagine, that was like quite catastrophic for my relationships and my life. So, I got into the work from my perspective at the time. I'd say it was something really basic, which was everybody would come to me for advice. And I was like the friend that everybody wanted to talk to about relationships. But clearly there was something else that was drawing me to it. And I think I had my finger on the pulse with, like, I knew that I had not gotten a good model of what a healthy relationship was. And I knew that there was a fear somewhere that like, I like definitely do not want to go through that experience myself. Yeah. So I think there was a part that wanted to get an education on relationships in school with the hopes that that was going to be something that would help me, sidestep, avoid going down the same path that they did.
So then how did you break out of it? Like, did you have a like, I woke up moment and like, oh my God, this has been affecting me this whole time?
I did.
Or was it slow unraveling?
I'm sure there were some slow pieces to it, but it did feel like there was a significant sort of like aha catalyst moment. In my mid-late 20s. I was dating somebody who I thought was the one, and I could really picture a life with him. And a couple months into us dating, his ex came back into the picture. She wanted to get back with him. And he moved into the space of contemplation, right? So it wasn't like no, I'm with Vienna, this, like, absolutely not. He was really struggling with this. And as you might imagine, it's a little cringy for me to say in the storytelling of it, but I was like, totally fine. Like, yeah, whatever you need to do, please, I want you to spend time with her if you need to so that you can figure out. I mean, really.
I would be like, I'm coming.
No, but like, it's like you look at these things and there's probably some listeners who very much identify with exactly what you just said. But the folks who maybe have, and you don't have to have a similar story to me, but the like, I don't know that it's okay to set a boundary. I don't know that it's okay to say that I'm not okay with something. And it risks something. It's like I didn't know how to tolerate setting the boundary and standing firm in what was true for me, because on the other side of that probably meant that I was going to lose the relationship. And because that's not tolerable to me at that point in my life, I'm going to do everything I need to do to sidestep that, because I don't have the capacity for that. Right. And so, in this like, like I almost want to scoop her up a little bit, like when you tell that story from a part of yourself so long ago and you're like, oh, sweet girl, like that's so sad. And yet that was the truth. Like I was like, please, and whatever you need. And I was just backbending constantly. And I was having a conversation with a friend probably a couple of weeks into this. And in that conversation, I think it became really clear that this same role that I was stepping into in this relationship was just so tied and connected to my childhood. And it's funny I went into grad school right after university. And so I had been a therapist for a handful of years at that time. And, I was good enough as a clinician at that point. Like I could get people to a certain point, but the reality of it is it's like, here I am as a therapist so early on in my career. And I'm like, like, oh yeah, your childhood affects you in your adult life. And, sometimes you need the, like 100%. The knock.
Yeah.
and that was, and so it became very obvious to me in that moment. And I called up the man I was dating at the time, and I got the guts to just say, I am going to actually exit from this dance with you. And like, this is actually not respectful, and it doesn't feel good for me, and I am bothered by it. And so sort of, it wasn't like I'm making the decision for you, but it, like, he had to decide whether he wanted to be with her anyway. But I was removing myself from the equation. Wow. And I think what's interesting about like doing something differently for the first time is that felt like hell.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't a mic drop moment. This wasn't like, oh, she's so empowered now. Like, look, she just stomped off and flipped her hair to the side. It was like, no, I said those words. I was like, I'm affected. This doesn't work for me. And that felt like a death to some degree. And maybe that sounds dramatic, but that's what it really felt like. And don't get me wrong, I was, crying on the bathroom floor, and for weeks thereafter, like, maybe he'll realize he may, it was like I did the whole thing that we all have done at some point. But I needed to go through that moment to have a data point that said, you can say that you're affected. You can not be okay with something and get through it.
Yeah.
And I know we know that in like conceptually we're like, but we have to live those moments where we have disconfirming experiences, where that data point says, okay, that was really hard. For me, that was really hard. For anybody who's I'm fine, it's fine, like, saying those words is really hard to do. And it was life-changing for me, because it was like, okay, I said the words, I did the thing, I'm still here. Yeah. It's okay. I can love again, right? Like, I went through that. And I had been somebody prior to that who was always the one who got broken up with, right? Like, even if I was unhappy in a relationship, like, I'm not going to be the one to say the words because I don't know how to say the words and get the words out of my mouth. And so that was the first time that I had really like initiated that and taken charge. And that did make a huge difference in my life and was probably the first really significant pivot I had made.
And that was like before going into and digging into the like family, let's call it trauma, or was that before or
I mean,
during?
I had, probably more of a during. Yeah. I knew the story of my life. And I actually think so many of us are fantastic storytellers of our lives. Be like, tell me what happened. And you're like, boop, 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 this, that, and the other. And you almost like you're disconnected from it.
On autopilot.
Here's the story. Let me tell you all of my pain and my wounding and my trauma. But we're not affected by it. And not that we need to go through life sharing deep affect all of the time. But I think that a lot of us get to this place where we story tell what's happened in our lives and we don't ever slow down to connect to its experience. And so I think I had really been a great orator of my life, but I had not felt what needed to be felt. I had not actually slowed down enough to make contact with the pain. And so, I think that was probably at a time where I was starting to build the capacity to make contact with my pain.
Yeah, because I think I see so many people just in my life as a 28-year-old. I think like everyone is going through these kind of life-changing moments and realizing a lot about themselves, and maybe the way they were raised isn't exactly the way that they're remembering it a certain way, but they also could have some trauma. And I think that's so vital to like be able to step into new relationships, like actually acknowledge what you went through. So I think that's really interesting that while you were acknowledging, that's when you started to make that shift. Like that's when it clicked.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think there's our painful experiences in the past, and especially in our childhoods, we sort of survive our way through them, right? Like, at 5, I wasn't like, let me like reflect on this and, really sit with this and feel this and grieve this. And so when we have something that's significant enough, like something fractures in us as a kid. And, whether it's at 5 or it's at 13 or, an origin wound, for example, like you might not have any trouble or rupture around trust until you're 35, right? So sometimes an origin wound happens later on in life, but when you're looking at your childhood, which is the work that I do, is I like to look at what that template and blueprint was and what it taught you about all the things and where you might have had a rupture around worth, around belonging, prioritization, trust, or safety, right? Like that's where we want to acknowledge and connect with that pain so that we can move from survival into choice. Really, like that's the definition of healing for me, is when we can move from surviving through something to choosing.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we revisit the past, because sometimes we're like, I just want to be in the present. Like, most people, like, they don't necessarily come into therapy because they're like, I would love to unpack my childhood with you. They come in because they're like, here's what's happening in my life right now.
Like, let's fix it.
We got to fix it. Or here's what's happening in the relationship. Or I'm in crisis. Or here's this pattern that keeps showing up and like, I'm sick and tired of it and I like need to make a change. And I understand that people don't necessarily want to journey back decades earlier, but we must. Now, we don't need to hang out there forever, but we really need to understand where these ruptures happened because everything that we do present day in our adult lives is orienting, when it comes to an unwanted pattern in our life, is orienting around something from before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want you to talk about the wounds in a second, the 5 wounds, but I wanted to share, I recently discovered kind of a wound that I had in my childhood. I grew up with a sister that struggled badly with mental health issues when she was young. She's 6 years younger than me, and she's amazing now and so great. And so there is hope. But I was always the mom. I was always, I had to keep it together because she was the one that needed that help and that attention. What I didn't realize would happen is that in my adulthood, I started choosing relationships where the guy needed help, or I felt like I could fix everyone, or I could stand in situations that were maybe unstable, or maybe the person needed extra help, but I thought that was my job. Right. And there's a difference between the two.
The saver, the fixer. And sometimes even the parentified child. It sort of depends what the parents' caretaker situation was for you and where they were. And but it's like, this is my role, and here's where I am helpful, and here's where I have something to offer. And but it's like, where are you in all of that?
Exactly.
And there's no room for me to also not be okay, right? There's like a bit of a story in where that we share there, which mine was oriented around my parents who were crashing and burning. Yours is oriented around your sister who needed a lot of attention. And was there room, maybe I should make the assumption, but was there room for you to have issues?
Not really. Like you would, because it's so similar the way that you said, like, you just knew automatically you couldn't stir things up. Like that's how I felt at such a young age. But I just, it was kind of an automatic thing for me. Like I was just like, oh, this is a problem. So I'm just going to make myself invisible and do everything that I'm supposed to do perfectly.
Right. And sometimes when we see something hard like that, where we realize, ooh, this is really hard for my parents, which again, I'm not sure if it was. But
for sure.
This is something that's hard for them. So I don't want to contribute something
100%.
Additional to this because that would be too much for them. Right? And so, in some ways we like shrink our needs and then everything focuses around the other person. And so whether you pick the quote unquote project or the person who just needs you to insert yourself and look at you, you saved the day, the function of that role. And yet maybe you realize that in dynamics like that, there's a lack of reciprocity in some ways. Right?
But it was after I dug into that and kind of, I've started realizing it recently, but I think what broke the pattern was me being able to finally talk to my sister about my problems, talk to my parents, open up online. Like I had room for that. And I feel like that's how I broke through it. And now in my current relationship, which is a good and healthy one, thankfully, I feel like it's the back and forth. It's the, I get to share when I'm feeling down. He gets to share that. And it's that push and pull.
Beautiful.
So I think that's like a really great outcome of.
It's incredible. And it like the power of acknowledgement, right? Like exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying. And some of us acknowledge it through writing and a form of even writing publicly and the catharsis of that and how therapeutic it can feel. And right. It's like otherwise we can feel so deprioritized in the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, there
100%.
isn't room for me, even if we have a smile and even if we're like going through the world, like I'm good. And this is what I do. And here's how I help people.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But you are deprioritized in that space. And so to have a relationship where it goes back and forth and you can trust that your needs and your struggles are a priority is really healing.
Yeah. So the 5 wounds, talk about this because I think this is amazing. This is a concept that you came up with.
Yeah, that's right. It's the core of my book, The Origins of You. And and I know you were using the word trauma before. And yes, we ought to. And I like using the word wounds too, because what I've noticed is that a lot of people check themselves out from the conversation when you only use the word trauma.
True.
And they're like, well, I don't have anything super significant. So I guess this conversation's not for me. And it is.
Yes.
Because even if you didn't have anything that like lands for you where you're like, oh, that was huge. Oh my gosh, right? It's like we still have the human experience. And the human experience isn't perfect. Thank goodness. We need it to be. Yeah. But the human experience is imperfect. It's flawed. The adults in our lives will get things wrong. They'll let us down. They'll disappoint us. Yeah. And so through that, right, we are going to come face to face with ruptures around our worth, ruptures around our sense of belonging, about being a priority in somebody's life, trust, and safety. So, I've worked with so many people at this point, over 25,000 hours of clinical work, right? Like I've really sat with individuals and couples and families through this. And so those 5 wounds really felt like they encompassed the painful experiences that we as humans go through and where we start to question this. As people listen, you're not having an experience and then getting filtered into a box. How you experience something and where it goes as a wound is based on how you internalize the event. So for example, let's say a parent abandoned you. For somebody that might be internalized as a worthiness wound because you sit there and you say, well, I guess that I wasn't good enough for you to stick around. And somebody else might internalize that as a trust wound. Well, I can't trust the most important people in my life to be there for me, right? So I just want people to like hear that it's not like this thing happens and then this is the wound that you get. This is about how you narrate the story of what this means about you or for you or what your expectations ought to be in the world.
Could it be both? Could there be 2 primary wounds?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it could be all 5. Right? I get DMs where they're like, is it possible to have all 5 of these? Yes, right? And you might have 1 or 2 that stand out a bit more than others. Yeah. And you might listen to some of these and you're like, nope, that's not me. Yeah. But here's the beauty of relational work. It might not be you, but it might be your partner. Or it might be your sister. Right. Or it might be your dear friend. Right. And that, my hope and my aim for people is to become relational. Right. Is to care about the whole experience of another human being whom you love and care about, and for the strangers too, right? But like that the more relational we can become, the better our relationships will be, right? So don't check out if you're like, that one's not me. So, okay, worthiness. And, we can get in as deep or not with all of these. I think a lot of people do brush up against worthiness. That is a wound that I have too. And, this is where it's like the perfectionists, the pleasers, the comic relief, the performers, like where the condition of love and connection and presence and validation and affirmation is present, right? Get the straight A's, do well on the sports field, do this, do that, and it gets you something. And if you don't do that, then something is withdrawn.
Sounds like me.
Sounds like a lot of us, right? I mean, in fact, I think a lot of the high achievers, right? It's like you sort of learn, okay, I need to do this in order to get something. And if I don't do that, then that's lost. My experience in motion, I share this story often, which is that my dad was, when I was who he wanted me to be, and I was easygoing, and I was likable, love, connection, presence, help, support, whatever you need, do it. Amazing. If I was challenging or pushing back on something or difficult in any way, then love, connection, closeness, withdrawn. And that was through the silent treatment.
Wow.
And so it would go days, sometimes weeks on end,
Wow.
where I didn't have access to him. And so you think about this like from a kid's perspective, right? And then a teenager perspective. What the message that is given, right, is that you need to be this way in order to be loved. And if you're that way, you can't be loved, right? It's going to be taken away from you. And of course, as a kid, right, it's like, you're sort of figuring out like, okay, what's happening here? Like, who do I need to be in order to get that, right? So it's really common for folks to kind of go into that space of like, okay, then I'll be that to get that. Now, my teenage years, I was like, fine.
Like, okay,
I'll battle you out, And so
Yeah.
you can sort of go into that rebellious state as well. But it still set the tone for who I believed I needed to be, which, going back to the story I led with, is, okay, I'm unaffected, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm going to be the cool girl, I'm not going to rock the boat at all, because that's what I think is going to get me love and connection. And I remember the first sort of like fight that my now husband and I got into when we were dating. And it was this moment where a part of me came forward that he had not seen before, right? Before it was like the cool girl, and all of a sudden I was doing something that I had not done before. And I remember that moment of like, oh no, did I just like lose love and connection and presence from this person? And a spoiler, like I did not, and we worked through lots of things, but you can see how that shows up in present day, where you just hang out in that people pleaser, or that perfectionist, or you're the over functioner, or I'm going to fill this role and do this in order to get what it is that I think I need from this. So, okay, belonging. A lot of families have this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is what we do, this is how we think and feel, and if you don't, you're on the outside. So a lot of folks with a belonging wound, people confuse belonging with fitting in. But they'll move into that space where it's like, okay, I have to trade who I am to be a part of something. I have to be a part of the group. I don't want to be excluded. I want to be included. I want to fit in. I don't want to be an outsider. People who feel like the outsider, who feel othered, some of the folks who might have been the black sheep in the family, right, are people who might struggle with a belonging wound. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about how attachment and authenticity are like the two most important things for a child. But if there's something that threatens attachment, they will forego authenticity for it, because quite literally we need it to survive, right? And so if you grew up in a household where your authenticity could not be tolerated, right, where it could not be respected or accepted, where differences were not allowed, right? It's really easy for that belonging wound to shape. And so, yeah, if you're in your life right now where that like need to fit in, you can't be excluded, you don't want to miss out, all of that, and you'll trade kind of who you are in order to be liked by someone or a group. Sometimes this happens in friendships too, like not necessarily 100%. Just in like a romantic relationship. I think it plays out in friendship quite a bit, where you're like, okay, like I'll gossip with you if that's going to make you like me more, and you're like, wait, that part of me, I don't want to engage that, or okay, I'll overspend so that I'm a part of it, so that I don't miss out on this thing, but I really like that was too much money for me to pay, like all of those little things that we do to try to fit in or be a part of something, because it gives us that false sense of love or security or some version of that.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I can think of situations, like I can think of friends that I feel like they connect to that and relate to that. I assume like this kind of happens when families like politically, or if a family member is part of the LGBTQ community, I would imagine that people like that might really struggle with the belonging one even more. That's
absolutely
so interesting.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's like so many cultural pieces too, like it doesn't
it's just
always.
That's what it immediately makes me think. Like as soon as you said belonging or a family kind of exiling someone, I'm like, in this day and age, politically, I feel like this happens all the time, where families are are torn apart or someone feels like they can't be part of the family.
That's right. And if you have just a different belief system, again, it can look a little different when you're talking about like adult children and parents versus when you're a tiny human going through this experience. But these differences that are intolerable, right? It's like as a kid, you don't know where to place that.
Right.
And then, the cultural pieces, right? So if I talk to so many folks and it's like, so a person of color who's in a white community and like, where does that belonging piece fit in? Or what's represented, whether it's magazines, television, movies, et cetera. And now we're talking outside of the family system. But of course, we have lots of things that affect our wounding as we go. It's not just our families. Teachers, coaches, society, media, et cetera. Church, right? There's all of that will play into that. So when I had a while ago, I'd released a quiz. Maybe you took it.
I know.
But it's I got so many messages when you were starting to talk about friends that friend circles were passing around this quiz. Yeah. And it was so sweet because I hadn't even created it like with that in mind. But it was so sweet because people would message me and say, I am learning so much about my friends. Yeah. Like I didn't even realize that this friend and that friend had this wound and that makes so much sense. Yes. And again, the relational aspect of, the most simplest form of it, when I know that you have this wound and I care about you, then how I stay relational with you with that awareness is such a beautiful offering. Yeah. And that's the simplest one. Like, I'm not asking you to pull up your sleeves and like do this heavy lifting work with each other, but it was just so cool to hear the friend circles being like, whoa, and this, and that makes sense, and okay, and I'm going to practice this with you.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people listening to this, like, you obviously are thinking about yourself, but your life is who you're surrounded by.
That's right.
And so it's like, if I can learn these and be a better friend or show up better for my boyfriend or a family member, like, I feel like that is so important too. Huge. Because even our parents, they have different wounds than us from how they were raised.
That's right. So, and that generation does not tend to talk about it as much. Yeah. And also, we sort of forget as the adult child that our parents and caretakers had a childhood too.
Totally.
Just like we know, but we don't know, and you're like, like what was that? Like there's this quote from a psychotherapist, Michael Kerr, where he says, think of your mother as your grandmother's daughter and see what shifts. And I think it's a beautiful invitation.
Yeah,
and
it's really crazy.
For those of us who have the capacity to do that, you know, where you're like, some people are like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to go there. But for those who can, I do think that there's something beautiful about being able to see humans as tiny humans once before
100%.
And what their world was like and what they were going through and what their wounds and what their story is, because we don't often get the full story.
Totally.
And we also don't know what was happening in their lives when we were kids. Yeah. Like when I was about 2, my mom's sister died. And I remember being old, like much, I was an adult at the time and I was like, yeah. I wonder what that must have been like to parent me. It like died out of the blue, and it was like, wow. Like I didn't know that happened at the time. Right. I would not have thought like, what was it like? And now I'm a parent.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And it's like, like how would I parent if something like that happened? And what's that like to show up as a parent when you are grieving in this way and going through this incredibly hard thing? Yeah. So I think it's just important for us to try to hold that relational lens. Yeah. We call it a systemic lens, right? To see the system around the people in our lives.
Yeah. And isn't that crazy? Like, I always think about, oh, my mom was my age when she was doing, like, I'm the same age that she was when she was like married and already like having kids. And I'm like, I'm nowhere near that. It's just so interesting when you become that age. Totally. I'm like, I'm 28 when my mom was 28. It's insane to compare. Yeah. And it really does help me be more empathetic towards why certain things may have happened, because they're doing life for the first time too.
That's right. And for some, it makes us angrier.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and then for some, it's both, you know, where you can feel the empathy and then you're also like, how could you not have done, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here now and I have a kid or I'm doing this. Like, how could you not have known that this is what I needed, you know? And so, it can really activate a lot for us. But again, to try to stay relational is so helpful. And I think understanding these wounds is really powerful. Okay, prioritization. And maybe what people will notice is that it can feel like there's sort of overlap to some of these. And it's, again, sort of how it slots in for you. But the way that I think about a prioritization wound is when something was more important, chronically more important than you. Okay? So that could be work for a parent. It could be addiction. It could be a sibling who has a mental health challenge where all of the attention went to that person and so you were deprioritized in that way. It might be that your parents have tons of conflict, and even though nobody's like, we're prioritizing conflict, it's that it is what gets all of the attention. And so because that is what has all of the attention, you do not. And then there's a story that I always share when I'm talking about the prioritization wound, because I think it's important that we're not just thinking about wounds as like malintent and negligence. And right. It's like sometimes these wounds happen because they happen. Yeah. Which is that the story that I share is of a guy who had a single mother who was working multiple jobs, and the only time that they got together was on Sundays to go to church and have brunch afterwards. And then she'd go off to, another shift. And, he sat there in therapy, like loved her, respected her, admired her, and really like made a pitch for she's doing all of this to prioritize me, which was true. Yeah. And also he wanted to feel prioritized through time spent. Right. And it just wasn't available. Yeah. And not because she was doing anything wrong. Nobody's going to give mama a hard time for what she was doing. It was incredible. But it doesn't change the fact that that was still his experience. Yeah. And so sometimes when we look at our stories, we move into that space of rationalization or explanation or, even protecting them. Mm-hmm. And our goal is not to not protect them. And our goal is not to throw them under the bus, but to just make contact with our experience. Yeah. As I said in the beginning of like, I needed to make contact with my pain. Mm-hmm. And without doing so, the unwanted patterns continue. Yeah.
What you said about protection, I think that's so interesting, because I would imagine a lot of clients you see are really afraid to bash or even go there. Yes. That like something was wrong or like, but I like what you said with the end. Mm-hmm. Like there has to be room for both.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And we don't have to bash anybody. Yeah. And some people, but it's, we don't have to. And that's not the goal. Yeah. The goal is to make contact with your experience. Yeah. Because that's the only way that we can do something with it. Mm. But you're right. People they did so much better than their parents, yes. True, fact, okay, yes. And right.
It's like the struggle to protect them. And and that's also, I think a lot of people maybe sometimes, and tell me if I'm wrong, being a little bit in denial about their situation.
Yes, can be.
Like I could imagine potentially, I don't know,
or fear of opening up Pandora's box. What am I going to find? Will I be able to do this? Yeah. Is this too much for me? I don't want to go there. The past is the past. Yeah. Sometimes our parents aren't still living. And so the idea of going back and not actually having the person here can feel really confronting.
But then what do you risk? Sorry to interrupt you. You have me thinking so many things. What do you risk if you don't open up Pandora's box? What do you risk if then you never acknowledge those things?
Staying stuck. Yeah. I just posted a reel yesterday, actually, and it was a part of an acceptance speech Viola Davis was giving. She was accepting some award, and she was talking about a definition of hell that she had heard. Mm-hmm. And she shared it with the audience, and she does a beautiful job delivering this. So I will not be able to do it justice, but she essentially says that hell, the definition of hell is that on your final day, the person you are meets the person you could have became. And I think that's incredibly powerful and profound. And I think sort of that definition of hell helps us understand what healing is.
Yeah.
Which is that, yes, to look at our story and to look at our past and to look at our pain is hard. And it takes guts, really, to do it.
Yeah.
But to not do it risks everything.
Yeah.
Right? It risks staying stuck. It risks leaving something on the table. It risks on that final day seeing who you could be and having not met that person. I think our work here is to meet the parts of ourselves, you know, and to, to go through the darkness sometimes in that. Yeah. And, you know, you can avoid it and look away from it all you want, but likely if you do so, your life is just going to be on repeat. Yeah. And you'll get frustrated and you'll say things like, why does this keep happening? And you'll wonder maybe what's wrong with you, or maybe it's going to be what's wrong with everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, right? Some version of that, but you'll stay stuck.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes we have to go through something that can feel gut-wrenching, that can feel grueling, I think what you're pointing to is really important, because if I don't, what do I risk?
Right.
And I think that's an important question for everyone to ask. Now, all of our timelines are our timelines. And sometimes we are not quite ready to do that. And so the invitation stays open. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it, whether you do it at 28 or 40 or 62 or whatever. Yeah. You know, ideally not on your deathbed, but like I would love for people to take the invitation at some point. But yeah, it's there and it's open and it's ready. But part of this is about building enough safety in our bodies to touch what needs to be touched. Yeah. And the reason we don't is self-protective, whether we're aware of it or not. But the function of denial, the function of avoidance, the function of it being everybody else's fault and problem, the function of all of that, right, is self-protection. What am I protecting myself from? And that's important. And our job is not to railroad that. Well, you better stop protecting. No, it's like, okay, let's understand that first. Yeah. Wow, you are doing something that is protecting you from something that you believe through your experience is worse, is more unsafe. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not trying to force you into that. How do we start to make that a little more safe so that it becomes a little more tolerable, so that your capacity starts to expand and build just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And maybe this happens through the relationship with your therapist, or maybe this happens with a dear friend, or maybe this is the work that you do with your journal, or maybe this is, you know, it's like, we have to use humans, we have to use nervous systems in order to get there. Yeah. And so, yeah, the invitation isn't like, okay, head down, push through. That's not it at all. But we do need to understand that our resistance is an attempt to protect us from something that we believe is really more threatening than what is on the other side.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what are is that all the wounds?
No, but I don't want to have it. Yes, trust and safety in some ways go hand in hand. Yeah. Trust, it's going to be linked to betrayal and deceit and lies. The obvious ones are maybe an affair, family secrets, whether you're keeping the secret within the family from the outside world, or whether somebody within the family is asking you to keep a secret from somebody else in the family. It might be through promises that are chronically not upheld. And I'm not talking I said we'd get ice cream, but we can't now because this other thing, right? I'm not talking about, it needs to be a chronic thing that happens that deteriorates the relationship with trust. And sometimes it's like the sweeping generalizations. How many clients I've heard who say, I grew up and my mom said, don't ever trust a man, you know, and it's just like none of them, you know, or don't ever trust a woman, none of of them.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, those are really significant narratives to get. It will build often a hypervigilance, constantly scanning, looking for the cues, like where is the deceit, betrayal going to happen? Maybe it's the snoop looking through the emails, looking through social. Look, what do you? I'm trying to find something.
Yeah,
right. I'm trying to get ahead,
yes.
so that I'm not the fool. Nothing happens behind behind me. And then lastly, safety, and we can dive in further on anything that I know I'm moving through them quickly right now. But safe, when we're talking about the absence of safety, we are often talking about the presence of abuse, negligence, recklessness. This is a really tender one. I move the reader through that one a little bit differently because of the tenderness. I highly recommend that if you have a safety wound, that you work with a skilled practitioner with this one, because there can be a lot of trauma around that, and we just have to be careful with what we're reopening in that space. But again, that hypervigilance, and it's not always something like, I tell a story about a girl who was at home with her grandmother, and the grandmother had a stroke when nobody else was at home, but she was tiny, she was a little girl at the time. So to see something like that, to experience something like that, it's scary, right? It doesn't feel like your environment is safe. Or, you have a break-in, or, sometimes it's not the recklessness or the negligence or the abuse by someone. It's just something that happens, an event that happens that shakes you to your core when it comes to, am I safe in the world? Right.
Okay, we have to move to people who are single right now. Okay. There are so many girlies I know that are listening to this. When you feel like you are just in a loop of repeating the same patterns over and over and over, what is your advice or suggestion? Like, is the first thing to examine the wounds and be like, what am I suffering from, and what's happening with me? Where do you go if you?
Well, I think, in those loops, it's like, okay, what and who am I choosing each time, right? Because sometimes we're going to find that pattern, right? Like whether it's I'm always choosing the emotionally unavailable person, or I'm always choosing the project, quote unquote. Like I see something that's missing and I'm going to fill the spot, we want to really try to identify what role you're stepping into. And then, if you can see what that pattern is of what you choose, that's going to be really helpful and help point us in a particular direction.
Interesting.
Who do I need to be in this relationship? Right? Like, who am I trying to be in this relationship? And, too, I think when some people are listening to this conversation, there might be a wound or multiple wounds that kind of resonate as you think about, okay, every time I date, I am trying to prove to this person that I am good enough for them to choose me. Like, I'm never in the chooser role. Right?
That's such a prominent thing that I see, I feel like.
Yes. I think a lot of people are like, will this person like me, love me, choose me, want me, desire me?
Yes.
And we forget the like, hey, I get to choose here too.
Like, what do you like about them?
Yes. Like, am I into you? Are you interesting? Am I attracted? Like, what's happening here?
Right.
Like, do I even get a choice? But we are so, especially women, girls, like conditioned to be like, to be chosen.
Yes.
Right. And so it's so easy for that part to show up. And so with a worthiness piece, it's like, okay, am I just trying to get this person to want me, choose me, love me, need me? Belonging, you could look for, can I be authentic here? Simply, like, can I just be honest? So you ever, I think back to my dating years, somebody'd be like, oh, do you know this band? I love this band. I'd be like, yeah. I know this band. I'm like, never heard of this band before.
Literally
right?
Me starting to watch TV shows just to like appeal to the person.
Right.
Like, I love that.
Well, what happens if I say, no, I have no clue?
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden you're going to like stand up and leave the table.
Right.
It's like, but that, even those little shifts of honesty, because that fear of who I am, or the things that I care about, or the things that I love, or the things that I'm interested in, I'm so fearful that you will not have tolerance for them.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Prioritization. I always prioritize the other person. Whatever you want. Yes, I'm a yes girl. Whatever you need. I'm available when you're available. Gonna make sure, because I don't want to, I'll pretend like I have plans, but I'm not going to have plans, so that if you want to be with me, I'm available to be with you.
Yeah.
Right. And, it's like, Sometimes it's the over-functioning of like making sure that the other person feels prioritized. Some of the ways that a prioritization wound might come up is by prioritizing other people so that they get a hint of how you want to be prioritized.
Interesting. Right? That's a crazy one. That is so crazy. So people that tend to always be available, that could be a prioritization.
Totally. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay. There's so many. Like, I'm like, how can we get
You're
through
like
this
rapid
really
fire?
fast? Yeah, literally rapid fire. Okay. How to stop overanalyzing. I see this a lot, and I don't know if this connects to a specific wound. But when dating, I feel like it's really easy to overanalyze every single thing. He texted me this. What does it mean? He rescheduled for this day, whatever it might be. How do we what can we put in place to stop doing that?
Overanalyzing is a protective function, right? So when you keep bringing it back to what is the function of the behavior, that's going to be really helpful for us. When we overanalyze things, we are trying to protect ourselves from what? The relationship ending, the person not liking us, sort of not being not sideswiped. What's the right word? Blindsided.
Yes.
You know, like we're trying to get ahead of something. What does this mean so that I can be prepared for it? What does this mean so that, right? And so the function is protective.
Yeah.
I don't want to get hurt. Now, how do we change that? By building tolerance and trust and safety within ourselves that we can get through a hard thing. I cannot sit here and tell you that you are not going to be left. That can't be the answer for you to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the only answer that can be presented here is that you build enough safety within yourself that you trust that if the thing ends, right? So if I'm going to put the overanalyzing down and just like what will be. And I know some people hate that shit, you know, but there's a real truth to it, which is like, okay, I'm just like, what's going to unfold will unfold. I'm not going to try to understand everything because that actually moves me away from being. What's really important about this question, and I'm mindful of our time. I know you have a lot of questions for me, but I think that this is really important. Attachment, secure relationship. Secure attachment. I love this definition from my friend and colleague, Dewey Freeman. And this is built in our childhoods. It's healthy relationship is going through a hard time, staying connected, staying in contact, and coming out the other side okay. When your parents and your caregivers and the adults in your life model for you, we get through hard things. When we have rupture, I'm right here. We're going to get right through it. This hard thing, we're going to get through it. And I'm going to show you that. And that's built into your nervous system. So heartbreak sucks.
Yeah.
That's hard. Yeah. But for some people, heartbreak is going to destroy them.
Yeah.
And for others, it's hard. And they're like, okay. I'm going to get through this. There is a security and an insecurity there. And don't let the word insecurity push you because it's got a negative connotation to it. Let's just take it as face value. You do not have a secure attachment. You do not know in your body because of your experiences and your history that you can get through hard things and come out the other side. You're not a bad person because you have an insecure attachment. It's just part of your story now, right? And so people who struggle with their attachment are going to be the ones who are overanalyzing everything because they don't know, not here in the head, for people who are just listening, right? I'm pointing to my brain, right? But in their bodies, they don't know that they're going to be okay. So they have to overanalyze because the function of that behavior, they are convinced, is the thing that is going to protect them.
Wow. Yeah, it's like it's a survival mechanism.
Yes.
It's like I think that's what it really comes down to.
So it's why I can't sit here and say, well, just practice not.
Right. Just don't.
Just don't. Like try to put it down.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not going to work.
You have to work on the deeper, what's going on underneath it. And then eventually.
Yes. And then little by little, because part of this is like you have to have disconfirming experiences, right? And you have to have those data points like I did in the beginning of like, okay, I said the thing, I was affected, this isn't okay with me, I survived it. I mean, and now you ask my husband, he's like, there is nothing you will not say. It's like, I am happy to share. Yeah, totally real. Yes, exactly.
Okay, I want to get into relationships and marriage for the last 5.
Sure.
The last 5. Do you think people are truly meant for each other? There's a such thing as soulmates, or do you think it's two people that are just actively choosing each other?
Can I say a little bit of both in some ways?
Absolutely.
Like I don't, whether people believe in soulmates or not. Like I love the term soul helper, which I
love that.
Created long ago.
I love that.
But ultimately, I do think like at the core, maybe what brings a person together is one thing, but what maintains a relationship is choice over time.
Do you believe if he wanted to, he would?
No, not always. And let me tell you why. We can want a lot of things, but if our nervous system doesn't have the capacity for it, it won't do it. So yes and no. Sometimes yes, because some fuckboys and whatever, Okay, so sometimes yes, but I know so many people who so want what they say.
Interesting.
Who so want what they say. Look, that could be relevant for all the girlies who are listening too, who are like, I want an emotionally available person. And it's not because like, well, then if you did, you would.
Right. So true.
Well, if you did, you would.
When you flip the script.
Yes, when you flip the script. That's
like,
really important for us to flip the scripts, right? So, okay, yes, in that, for sure. Of course, like people are going through life and they don't care about other people and they're just lying and spouting bullshit. But no, in that so many of us absolutely would if we could, but we can't if our nervous system doesn't feel safe enough to. Does that make sense?
Yes, completely. Okay. Tips for a healthy marriage. You've seen so many couples. What are overall themes that you feel like are the telltale signs? And I know there might not be a cut and dry, but a long marriage, a long and happy marriage, what are some of the overall themes that these couples have in common? You
must be able to repair. I love this idea. Instead of racing to be right, race to repair. Instead of how quickly can I prove my point and be right and show you and I won this fight, how quickly can you repair? That is huge. It's so important. And our capacity again to go into a place of repair is so important.
Wow.
Our need to I keep saying this, to be relational. Know your own origin wounds. Know your partner's origin wounds. Know each other's stories. Know what it was like to grow up in their family. Learn, get curious, stay curious. Don't be afraid to see your partner as a little child sometimes. Don't forget that they were a little human. Get to know that little human's world, their story, their history. All of that is going to help you stay relational. To be self-aware is one thing. To be relationally aware is another. I can't recommend that enough. It is a commitment, like a life's commitment to see each other through that lens, right? And I think sometimes when we're like so mad at the person in the present day and you're like, you asshole, or you jerk, and but when we can like remind ourselves of who we know, right? That full story, that can really shift a lot. Context doesn't need to be excuses. I always say that context is not here to make excuses for people, but context does help bridge something. And that, to know each other in that way is so, so valuable. And then lastly, like I think that long-term relationship, being in my marriage now we've been together for 10 years. So like, it's long enough to have like 100%. Something in the like a stake in the ground, even though we're still,
you got some credibility.
We got some credibility, but I got a lot of life to live still with him. Is I think what I'm learning, so this is personal and less professional. Look, the joys and the love and the ease and the fun, that's great. And we have a lot of it. And I hope that people have a lot of it in their relationship too. That should be a huge part of it. But ultimately, I think that life's and being in long-term relationship with someone is just a series of going through hard moments together. And those hard moments, they come and they don't stop as you grow older and as you face different chapters of life together. And, I think depending on how old people are and what chapter of life people are in, when I was in my 20s, I don't know that I would be like, oh, all of these hard moments, but like, okay, now 2 kids in and aging parents and the sandwich generation. And right, it's like, if you're with somebody long enough, you are going to go through hardship together. You're going to go through parenting, or you're going to go through fertility things, or you're going to lose parents or family members. You're going to have financial troubles. You're just going to face a lot. And so ultimately, I think choosing somebody who you want to go through the hard with,
I love that,
is just really at the core and center of it.
Yeah.
The hard is hard, but gosh, I love going through hard with my husband because I know that we will get through it. I know that we're coming out the other side, and I know that we're gaining something through it.
Yeah.
Like you don't lose something through the hard. Like you might lose some, but you gain something through it because you face yourself and each other in a way that you haven't before. And so when you can trust that and build that, I remember early on, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We're going through a hard moment. What does this mean for us? And now 10 years in, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. See you on the other side.
Yeah.
Like there's no part of me that worries.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I want to keep you forever. Okay. My mom always says it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be easy. The beginning of my relationship wasn't always easy. It is now, and it got easier. But do you agree with that?
The beginning of my relationship wasn't easy.
And I feel like people are really afraid to admit that.
Yeah. I
think like there's like people are like, no, it's always supposed to be. That wasn't my personal experience. So I'm wondering.
No, I don't agree with it. Sorry, Mom. I think we overemphasize that. And actually, it really ties to what I just said about going through the hard.
Yeah.
I think this idea that we stay in the easy and like it needs to be easy.
Yeah.
Look, it doesn't need to be grueling.
No,
you know what I mean? Like
it
doesn't, like, let's be in the nuance of this, right? Like, yes. I have more fun and joy in my life than I do hard.
100%.
Okay. So like, I'll be very explicitly clear about that so people don't get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
wrong.
Let's not make people get into bad
We have to be in hardship all the time. No, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
But no, it should be easy. Look, I want you to have love and joy and ease and peace and all of that. But it does not need to always be easy in order for it to be right.
Yeah.
In fact, I think sometimes in order for it to be right is like, that I know we go through hard things together.
Yeah.
That I trust you to pull up your sleeves. I trust you to get in there with me.
Yeah.
I want that. And I want to know that we can talk about the things. Sometimes older generations, they stay in the ease because they're unwilling to go in. They don't want to rock the boat.
Yes. And I think that's a huge thing about what we went through. Like we got close so early that we unraveled a lot so early. And I think that's something that for men, it's really hard. And for the older generation, you don't see that happening often. So
there was more of an emphasis, I think, in those generations of like not rocking the boat as much and we're sometimes worried about what other people think in a big way.
Totally.
And like the self-sacrifice. Yeah. And now we have more eudaimonia is a high value, which is just like self-care. Like, what do I want? What do I need?
Yes.
And so I'm going to say what I need to say and share what I need to share because holding on to that is going to not be good for me. And so I need to bring it forward. So there's a lot of shifts that happen generation to generation, but I don't think we need it to be all ease.
Okay. I got to do one final question. Great. Something that's like, okay, this is what we're going to end on. Can you have a healthy relationship if you don't fully love yourself yet?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I don't think one of the most beautiful pieces about relationship is having your partner love the part or parts of you that you haven't quite yet come to love. And sometimes that experience is the thing that brings you into your own self-love of it. I don't think if you hate all of yourself, it's going to be easy,
Yeah,
right? So again,
yeah.
that nuance
Yeah.
of, you know, I think we need to be in a place where we like ourselves, but we
Yeah.
don't have to love every part of ourselves. We don't have to like every part of ourselves to be able to be in a good relationship or a healthy relationship. And I think we leave a little bit of that window open to say, when you can love me in this way, it invites me to love me in this way.
I love that. Okay, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for letting me pick your brain. This was so amazing, and I think you are brilliant. Tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your book, and the relationship quiz and everything.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I love this conversation. The book is The Origins of You, How Breaking Family Patterns Can Liberate the Way We Live and Love. Available everywhere. I read the book too, so if people enjoy audio and listen, it's like put that book on and let me guide you through it.
Amazing.
ViennaPharaon.com, NewYorkCouplesCounseling.com. I have group practice here in the city. And then there's 10 clinicians. So we cover a lot of different states. There's a coach as well. So if this type of work you're interested in, holler, and I'm happy to connect you with some great folks. And yeah, the quiz. Well, maybe we link it in the show notes.
Yes, I'm going to link everything for sure.
But take that quiz.
Yeah.
It's great. Great place to start.
Totally.
And then please follow me on Instagram, Mindful MFT. I am posting every day there, and I hope it's valuable to the reader and the listener there.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much.